She got away, she got away, she got away, she got away, oh she got away, oh she got away.
Hi friends, welcome to the show, She Got Away. I'm your host, Kibbi. I can't believe it's episode 3 already. Wow, and I'm still nervous. I might always be nervous to talk about this, but that's okay because after I do, I feel so much better. It works for me, so I'm grateful to be nervous. I'm grateful to be here. Today's topic is kind of dark, and I can't believe I'm sharing it. I can't believe I have the strength to today. So welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. Last week we talked about going from denial to truth, and I shared my experience of when I went from denial to truth. This week we're going to talk about the point system that I created to trick the devil, my experience with dissociative identity disorder, and a little about how I overcame it, and I'll end with answering more questions from you guys. Escaping my family was a very long journey for me, and dissociative identity disorder was part of that. So let's get into it. If you don't know me, I'm a satanic ritual abuse survivor, and as a result, I developed dissociative identity disorder. In this episode, I'm going to tell you all about it. Trigger warnings: satanic ritual abuse, religious abuse, sexual abuse. I think that's about it. I want to say that this is only my experience with D.I.D. D.I.D is so individualized, and I believe it's often misunderstood. I encourage you not to take my experiences and believe that all cases of D.I.D are like mine, because that's not true at all. I believe cases of D.I.D are as unique as a fingerprint. Just like me, everyone has their own unique personal experience with D.I.D, and I'm grateful I get to share with you my experience with it. So, my dissociative identity disorder wasn't formed until I was age 13. It's very common to be formed at an earlier age. That just isn't my truth. Growing up between the ages of 0 and 8 during the rituals, my mom and I mutually didn't like each other. I knew what she was doing was wrong, and I made it a mission to try and stay as conscious as possible during these rituals so I wouldn't forget. I knew it was a matter of time before I escaped my family. I didn't know it would take me until I was 30, but I knew as a child I'd leave that family eventually, and I did. One thing that helped me stay conscious was I didn't have an emotional attachment to my mom. I didn't like her. I didn't view her as a mom. I really didn't like her or agree with what she was doing. If I did love her, I do think that would have made it more difficult for me, but thankfully somehow I had the gift of discernment at a very young age. I somewhat had an emotional attachment to my father, but I could smell his bullcrap too. In between the rituals, my father would express his fatherly love to me, and it did feel good. But the thing is that he would always promise me that he would never get a child again, that he would go get help from authorities, and that he would take me out of the family. And he never did those things. In fact, he would pretend to love me, promise those things, and then go back out and do it again and get another child. Another child to sacrifice. It was so annoying and painful. It was like on repeat. So I think at times I thought I loved my dad, but I could also smell his bullcrap, and I don't think I ever formed an authentically loving relationship with my father. I remember certain tricks I would use to help me stay conscious between the ages of 0 and 8 when I witnessed all these rituals. I remember biting the sides of my cheeks on the inside with my teeth to help me stay present during these rituals. I would repeat a phrase in my head. For one ritual, it was Sam, 8 years old, Chicago. But for most rituals, I told myself on repeat, this is happening, this is real, because I didn't want to lose the truth. I ended up losing my truth for many years while I was in denial, but I hope you get my drift. While I was a child, I fought very hard not to lose my truth. After the rituals, my dad would try to hypnotize me with a yo-yo. He would go, "That never happened. That wasn't real. That never happened. That wasn't real." And while he did that, I literally said one of two things. That did happen. That was real. While he was saying it never happened and it wasn't real, I was saying the opposite. or that did happen, he's a liar. So I didn't want him to hypnotize me with this yo-yo, so what I did was whatever he was telling me, I told myself the opposite to help me remember, because I knew he was trying to brainwash me with this yo-yo. Also, after rituals, my father would have me write on a sheet of paper, "That never happened, period. That wasn't real, period." Like the whole sheet, maybe even 2 sheets. So imagine a really traumatic event happening at home that was horrific, and then having your father sit you at a small table to write these things. In my childhood, I was like, what is this, school? Why is there school at home after such a sad event? I could smell the bullcrap. It didn't seem authentic to me. Something was off. So I knew what he was trying to tell me to write was bullcrap and that he was just trying to brainwash me. I was mostly conscious between the years of 0 and 8 during the rituals, and I'm proud of my child self. My inner child, or my child self, I feel, is the strongest part of me. Did I disassociate at all during the ages of 0 to 8? Yes, I'm pretty sure. I think I did while I was getting sexually abused individually and privately. But during these rituals, I fought hard not to. And overall, I didn't disassociate enough for it to create my dissociative identity disorder. For me, it was created a little later at age 13. Now I'm going to tell you how my dissociative identity disorder was formed. Remember, I witnessed the rituals from age 0 to 8. Afterwards, my mom moved us from the city to the suburbs and from private or Catholic school to public and said we were no longer religious, that we were now spiritual. At this time, she started her second round of brainwashing, convincing us that it never happened. Around age 10, and around that time, I was starting to go into denial, but not much, maybe only about 10%. Around age 10, I asked my mom, how am I going to live a normal life with all of this pain from everything I've witnessed? How am I going to have kids and a beautiful life? I wanted a beautiful life. My mom often told me that she sold her soul to the devil to get what she wanted. My mom said if my pain became too high and I wanted a new soul, no problem. I could just give it to the devil and he could give me a new soul and my pain would go away. So my pain did become too big at times in my life, and like my mom suggested, I went to the devil, but I tricked the devil. I created a point system and used it and spoke to him to get the things I wanted. This is what my mom trained me to do, except I was smart and developed a point system just to make sure the devil wouldn't get my soul. So the point system was something I created because my mom brainwashed me into thinking that the devil could give me whatever I wanted. And so when I wanted something, I spoke to the devil and I told him, if you ever get 12 points from me, then you can have my whole soul. But I knew I would never let him get 12 points. The devil ended up getting 9 out of 12 points. He never got 12 out of 12. And the reason I explain this point system to you, because it is such a factor in the development of my dissociative identity disorder. So the point system I created with the devil was, hey devil, when you get 12 points, you can have my whole soul. And when I want things in life, please give it to me and I'll give you 3 points. The first time was at age 13. I don't want to get too into it, but it was when I was starting to get my period and go from a child to a woman. I felt so shameful and so horrible about myself because my mom was obsessed with the youth. She was a petty, she loved the youth, and as I grew older, I lost value. I think in her head, the older someone is, the less valuable they are. I don't know. Whatever the case, I felt so much shame about getting my period. I didn't want it, and so I talked to the devil, and I'm like, hey, if you make this whole period thing easier on me, I'll give you 3 points. I think it worked. I don't know. What ended up happening was I barely got my period in my teenage years, and then by my mid-20s, I stopped getting my period altogether. I was also a compulsive runner, so I know scientifically that plays a role. I don't know if it was the running, the devil, or both, but I barely got my period until I started getting help. When I started getting extensive help at age 30, my menstruation came back rapidly and normally. So anyways, the devil got 3 points for that whole menstruation exchange. Also, when I was 13, the devil got another 3 points. At age 13, I went to the devil and I said, hey, my pain is too much. It was. It really was, guys. And I was like, if you give me a new heart and a new life, then I'll give you 3 more points. And he gave me a new heart, which I called Paige. And I felt like I was a new person or on another life, but within my same body, just more disconnected from my true self. I got the name Paige because my sisters and I played competitive volleyball, and on my younger sister's team was a girl named Paige, and I loved her attitude towards life. I wanted to be a Paige. Honestly, switching my old heart for a new one from Kibbi to Paige as a coping mechanism really worked as far as helping me stay in denial and become more disconnected from my true self. I look at it as me surviving until I was able to get help later in life. So at age 13, the devil already had 6 out of the 12 points that he needed to have my full soul. He got the points from supposedly helping me out with my menstruation, as well as allowing me to switch personas or hearts from Kibbi to Paige. When I was a child, I loved colors. I still do. But when I was a child, I would compartmentalize my feelings with them, and I would also assign people a color based off their personality after I'd get to know them. My mom was red, dad orange, older sister blue, I was green, and my younger sister yellow. I wore a green shirt today because that's my truest heart. That's my child's heart, and that's who I am today as one person. My child part, but just grown up. Anyways, when I switched from Kibbi to Paige, I also switched personality colors too. I went from green personality to purple, which is more mysterious, fun, entertaining, wild. So at 13, I had a very drastic personality change. And then again at 24 when I did it later. We'll get into that. Before getting diagnosed with D.I.D. in 2020, I only remember switching personalities one time when I was 27 years old. Other than that, while going through and developing the D.I.D., I didn't switch. I switched when I switched hearts and went from one color to a new one, or from one life to a new life, whatever way you want to look at it. That's when I switched personalities while the D.I.D. was forming, etc. So I went from Kibbi to Paige, living a brand new life with a brand new heart that was purple, but within the same body, at age 13. It tremendously helped me forget the past and stay in denial too. At this point, at age 13, I was already pretty far away from my true self, and the devil had 6 out of the 12 points that he needed to have my whole soul. I also want to say that while I was going through all this and the personality changes, I was in denial about it too. I know it sounds like it doesn't even make sense, but I was. The power of denial is so strong in my experience and opinion. So what's the difference between Kibbi and Paige in personality? Well, in a nutshell, Kibbi, or my child part, was super, super cheerful. Very connected to God because I was looking for anyone because there was no human to help me, and I knew God from the church, so that's who I choose to call my higher power. But I loved that I loved him. That's who I was. That's who I trusted and still do. I was really joyful. I loved giving others joy, especially when they seemed like down or sad. I would love to try and cheer someone up, whether it be talking about colors or dancing to music or anything else like cheerful. I was also very strong with my beliefs, and I stood up for my beliefs. So that's Kibbi's personality in a nutshell. And then Paige, when I switched at 13 from a green heart to a purple heart, Paige was mysterious, hence the purple, and a big partier. She was addicted to drugs and alcohol from age 16 to 24, or I was. She loved to have fun. She was fun. Just kind of troubled and reckless and a little too carefree, perhaps. Still a very caring person and a good person, too. Just confused and a little lost about her own identity or my own identity during those years. So I continued living my life as Paige from 13 to 24, and then my pain became too big again. I couldn't continue, I felt like. I was in a sober living on the West Coast, and was struggling to stay sober. I couldn't figure out why. What was wrong with me? Why couldn't I get sober? My true self would never do those things, and it really hurt that I just couldn't figure it out. I started planning this split before it happened too, but this time I didn't think of the name. I just remember walking home from 7-Eleven. I walked to 7-Eleven a lot at the time, and when I would walk home a couple times, I remember thinking like, oh, I think I'm going to do a split again or get a new color of a heart. So I did plan this one as well too. The final straw was my mom came to visit me, and we went out to dinner with someone I liked, the sober living manager, liked as a friend. I respected her, and I was with my mom, and I just felt so shameful about my mom, and I couldn't figure out why. I was so embarrassed and so ashamed, and it hurt. It hurt my entire body. Every ounce of my body hurt, because I was friends with the person we were with, and I wanted to show her my amazing mom, but I just felt this overload of shame, embarrassment, guilt, and my pain was too much again. It was so much in that restaurant. It was so high, and I felt like I had to switch right away, and I did. I went from Paige to Tuna, and I had to think of a name quick. I thought of Tuna because I felt like garbage, and I think because I was in a restaurant, I thought of a food, and I don't know, cats are fed tuna, so I somehow correlated it to garbage. That was just what was going on in my mind at the time. So I chose the name Tuna and had a new heart, and I went from a purple heart to orange, and it helped relieve a lot of my pain, and my life went on. Meanwhile, I was thinking I was on my third life within the same life. And after dinner that night, that's when I talked to the devil, and I'm like, hey, I know we did this today. Here's another 3 points. Now you have 9 out of 12. So when I switched from Paige to Tuna, I then switched from purple in personality to orange. And Tuna was me from age 24 to 30. During those years, Tuna, or I, became ultra focused on the disordered eating and compulsive running to cope with the past. Both of those compulsions or addictions just progressively got worse. The second switch furthered my denial more and disconnected me from my true self more. I was becoming sicker in my denial. While being Tuna, aged 24 to 30, my personality was pretty pissed at society and confused at society too. A workaholic, controlling, not really a pleasure to be around in my opinion. Felt robotic, super disconnected from her or me at that time. But Tuna was also caring. I think that's one thing I never lost within all these personas, was being caring. So Tuna was pretty dang far away from her true self or my true self, Kibbi, but still hanging on with a thread. During all these switches, the changes were private, except for the first one with Oscar, but that's a whole nother story. I never told anyone about all this. It was a secret to me, and actually I was in denial about it myself. When I was out living everyday life, I would forget about this. It was easy to. I don't know. I forgot about it while I was living life. I didn't remember until a couple years into recovery. There was this one time at age 27. At this point, I was in full denial, and I actually thought my mom was a good person and the best mom on the planet. I know. The power of denial is crazy. I believe denial is a form of insanity, and at age 27, yeah, I thought I loved a serial killer. To me, that's insane. Anyways, when I was 27/28, I had gotten a lot of dental work done, and it was caused because I had disordered eating as a coping mechanism to stay in denial. And I felt so shameful about all the dental work I had gotten, and guilty and a mess up, and just all these horrible feelings around all the dental work I had gotten done. And I remember I was driving and I saw Staples, and I'm like, Staples looks like such a good idea right now. So I go into Staples, which, if you don't know, it's kind of like a stationery school store, paper, anything school related. And I spent over $200 on a bunch of arts and crafts, cute stickers, kid stuff, right? And I get home and I'm like, what is all this? Why did I buy this? And I was curious myself. So I was researching the web, like, what could this be? And I found dissociative identity disorder. And who did I call for support? My mom. Oh, the power of denial. Yeah, I called my mom for support because I wanted to tell her this new discovery that I thought I had dissociative identity disorder. My mom was like, no, you don't have that. You don't have that. She just was so invalidating towards it. She invalidated it pretty quickly, which is ironic because usually when I'd go to her and say, hey, I think something's wrong with me, she'd be like, yeah, there is. So that's the only time I remember switching personalities outside of the designated time to switch while going through all this. So that's how I developed dissociative identity disorder, and this is how I recovered from it. I do believe integration is an ongoing process. For example, me sharing my story is helping me integrate and become closer to my true self. I'm no longer in the state of confusion that I was once in, which is the disorder part, right? State of confusion. I literally thought I was on my third life. Today, I take full responsibility for being one person, Kibbi. And I take full responsibility for all of my heart's pain. And it's all in my heart, one heart. And I take responsibility for everything as one person. Another big one is acceptance towards my truth. That was way easier to divide up into 3. But today, I accept my truth as one, Kibbi. Here's how. I started getting extensive help for this cult stuff in October of 2018. I was in so much pain once again, but this time, instead of going to the devil, I went to 12-step groups and started going to therapy weekly. I regained my relationship with my higher power, who I choose to call God, and he took away those silly 9 out of 12 points. It took almost 2 years for me to remember about the switching and Kibbi, Paige and Tuna and to be diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, and I was in 2020. When I was diagnosed, that's when I started switching, and controlling those switches was hard at times. I was switching in between Kibbi, Paige, and Tuna. It was chaotic. I felt like I was living 3 lives at once during the pandemic while embracing this. Okay, so how did I heal from all this? How did I go from thinking I was on my third life and 3 separate people to knowing that I'm one and taking responsibility for it too? When I was first diagnosed in 2020, one of the first things I did was look up the definition. I wanted to know what it was, but in simple terms. I'm going to read you a definition from WebMD that I did shorten a little bit. Dissociative identity disorder is a complex psychological condition caused by many things. D.I.D is a severe form of dissociation, a mental process that produces a lack of connection in your thoughts, memories, feelings, actions, or sense of identity. The dissociative aspect is thought to be a coping mechanism. You literally shut off or disassociate yourself from a situation or experience that's too violent, traumatic, or painful to assimilate with your conscious self. When you have D.I.D, you have 2 or more separate identities called alters. They control your behavior at various times. Each alter has its own personal history, traits, likes, and dislikes. I related to that definition so much. It was helpful. Next, I wanted to know if it had a solution. I looked up the word disorder, which literally means a state of confusion. I was like, yeah, all I have to do is find a way to come out of this state of confusion, and I will. I became determined. My therapist encouraged me to embrace these personas as they came on, as long as I wasn't hurting myself or anyone else. And I took that to a whole nother level, and I gave them each an Instagram account, and when the persona would come on, I would have fun recording it, and then I would post it on that Instagram account. It built support that was really helpful, and social media has helped me heal a lot. I have since made my Paige and Tuna accounts private because it's private to me now, but social media has tremendously helped me in my healing journey. And I think a big reason why is because I'm talking about vulnerable stuff, and y'all don't know me in real life, and so I feel like it's easier to express myself and be authentic. So as I embraced these personas when they came on, Kibbi, Paige, and Tuna, I also loved them, nourished them, learned about them, helped them become better versions of themselves, got to know them, which, is all really about me because I was in a state of confusion and I thought they were separate from me. But it was really a couple to a few years of getting to know these separate parts, or also known as getting to know me. And after about 2.5 years of embracing the personas separately, Paige and Tuna were ready to integrate. They set a boundary with me. Kibbi is already who I am. That's how I was created, as Kibbi, as color green in personality. So in May of 2022, Paige and Tuna were ready to integrate. They felt like they had become strong enough. And honestly, they were ready before me. They integrated and I could no longer switch. I tried. I really realized how much of a coping mechanism it was, especially when I started integrating. It wasn't there for me to switch anymore. Those beginning months of integrating were hard. For me, just my experience. I was like, whoa, all of this information about my past, all of this pain about my past, all of this resistance to accept my truth, all of this confusion, all for one person. I took it on as one person or with one heart rather than with 3. It hurt and it was hard, but I got through it. Just like when I embrace my feelings, I get through it. And I take responsibility for being one person today, not 3. D.I.D was taken off of my chart by my therapist in February of 2023 after about 7 or 8 months of integrating. When I was embracing the personas, I felt like I was reliving those years because I missed out on those years because I was in such survival mode from my trauma. It was actually kind of fun and it felt like a gift. Like I could go back to those years and relive them in a way, but in a new way, and grow from it too. It was like I was given an opportunity to go back to those years and strengthen those years of mine or those parts of me. I hope I'm making sense. Some things that helped me come out of my state of confusion and overcome D.I.D were keeping things simple, finding other friends with D.I.D to relate to, and keeping authenticity a priority. When I was diagnosed, I loved the simplicity of just looking at the definition, finding a solution, and being into action. I also found friends who also had D.I.D, and that really helped because not only did I gain friendships, but I was able to talk to others who understood me and vice versa. Making authenticity one of my main priorities also really helped me. I wasn't perfectly authentic. Who is? But I made authenticity one of my top priorities and values. It still is. I really clung to authenticity to embrace my D.I.D because I needed it. I needed to tap into myself and embrace parts of me that were pushed down because of my trauma, and I got to be myself unapologetically or authentically, and that really helped me. Sitting here in 2024 talking to you about this, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for my diagnosis. I'm so grateful for my recovery around it. I'm so grateful for the integration, which is me getting to be myself more and more, in which I continue to do and do and do. It's been a beautiful journey embracing my D.I.D. I've gotten to know and love myself on a deeper level, and as I keep going forward in life and keeping authenticity a main priority, I only get to know myself more and more. It's been a beautiful journey, hard at times, but totally worth it, and a very, very beautiful journey. Oh my gosh, I might cry, of embracing my D.I.D that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for, because I learned so much about myself. There really is beauty on the other side of pain. I'm grateful that I used D.I.D as a coping mechanism. It bought me time until I was able to get help. And I appreciate and I'm so grateful for all the support I've gotten along the way. And I'm so grateful for my higher power, who I choose to call God, because I don't think I could have come out of this state of confusion without him. And that's my D.I.D journey in a nutshell. I didn't know I would get emotional, but I guess today I learned it does mean a lot to me, the fact that I was diagnosed and I went through all that. Thank you for listening. Remember, guys, this is just my experience with dissociative identity disorder. Everybody's is so unique, and I hope for other people with D.I.D. that they don't get invalidated, because I know what it feels like to get invalidated for not only my truth, but my D.I.D. as well. For anyone struggling with D.I.D., I see you, I love you, and all of your inner children or personas. Okay, time to get into some questions from you guys. Actually, they're not from you guys. I just went on one of my posts about D.I.D. and I gathered a couple questions I saw a couple times. The first is a comment. The devil can't take your soul. I have no idea. I'm not here preaching religion or what's true or not true. I'm just here sharing my experience growing up with a psycho mom who appears to have been in a spiritual and religious psychosis and how it affected me. I care about God right now. Like, that's who's helping me right now. God will lead me the way. How did I talk to the devil? I just communicated with him with my head. I felt shameful. I did it in a rushed manner, but that's all, just with simple dialogue in my head. Have I ever seen the devil? No. Thanks for listening and helping me feel comfortable sharing all this. I've had a lot of shame around this for many years of my life. I always knew I was going to escape my family when I was younger. I didn't know there were going to be so many obstacles and loops in my journey. But I'm here. I've escaped it. I got away. And developing D.I.D. was a part of my long journey of escaping my family and finding my true self. That's it, friends. Thanks for listening. Today we talked about the point system I created to trick the devil, the way my D.I.D. was formed, as well as a little bit of how I recovered from it. And I ended up commenting on a few random comments I've seen. Tune in with us 2 weeks from now, Monday, June 10th. This podcast gets released at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Mondays, and it will now be every other Monday. So tune Mondays from now, June 10th. I'll see you again. I'd appreciate it if you supported my speaking out journey by hitting the like and subscribe button. Thank you for listening to She Got Away, your podcast that shines light on the depths of darkness. I'm your host, Kibbi. When I was a child, I dreamt of sharing my story and telling on my mom. I appreciate you being here. Until next time, bye.